I am so excited to be here as well. I'm pumped to be able to share some thoughts really from the intersection of HR and TA, right? So, for those of you who may be familiar with me, I really have a very long history in human resources, peppered with a lot of recruiting experience, being part of what is true for many who may even be with us today, functioning as an HR department of one, right? Let me hear it. If you're here as an HR department of one, please give yourself a shout out in the chat. We really do have to have some alignment in the way in which we're handling both human resources and talent acquisition. And so, how do you do that when you are working, let's say, with a team that is specific, right? That is a talent acquisition team and a human resources team, because often there's great disconnect there. I mean, obviously, the one way, as I just described it, is that there's silos. There are often in organizations, as you get larger, just separations that keep communication stymied. And what often happens is that we feel some sort of way about one another, right? I know some of you have had those. Let me tell you about so and so in recruiting, and let me tell you about so and so in human resources, right? And we've got these attitudes about one another. And really, it damages the way in which workflow should occur within the organization. We're affecting the future employee's experience because the candidate experience and the employee experience are misaligned. And think about the priorities that we have to juggle. I mean, often recruiters are tasked with being quick. Let's go. I need this. Brian just said this, about 15 minutes ago. When did I need this hire? Yesterday. And then here comes human resources that's like, well, we've got to make sure that we're compliant and that there's cultural fit and that there's organizational alignment. And it seems like those priorities are battling each other. And the ever popular quality of hire metric, right? The argument about who owns that. Is it a talent acquisition responsibility? Is it an HR responsibility? Is it a hiring manager responsibility? And by the way, shout out to Rachel Couples, who's going to be on a little later talking about the alignment with hiring managers. Stay tuned for that one. And now we have, again, a responsibility between HR and TA to handle skills-based hiring. Who is the determinant of those skills? Who's the one who says, well, these are really the things that are needed? Do you believe the hiring manager? Does the TA practitioner believe what the HR person has put on a job description? Does the HR person trust that the person who is being extended an offer really does meet those requirements, those qualifications to do the work? If we're not operating together, that misalignment is going to fly in our faces. And honestly, look, I know that right now we're dealing with some things from a trend standpoint. And you got to love some of the trends that I'm throwing up here for you, right? I never had the Rachel haircut for obvious reasons, like not having hair, but these things sometimes come and go for us. And this presenteeism, quiet quitting. Brian Fink, by the way, again, great article yesterday, today on executive quiet quitting. Take a look at that. This idea of presenteeism, people staying longer, even if they don't really like their job, that impacts the way in which not only those that stay engage, but those that are coming in, those hires that are coming in that recruiters are spending so much time trying to find and woo and bring into the organization, only to be met with individuals who are like, meh, just biding my time. Look, the quit rate is down about 0.5% in the last 20 months, if you've been tracking that. I think we're going to see it go down, I'm sorry, go up a bit more. We're going to see people staying longer because of the way in which the economy is right now. That's impacting the way in which we may look for talent, the way in which we may make space for talent, right? And we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. How about candidate expectations? Yes, we've talked about flexibility ad nauseum, but what does HR understand about flexibility versus what talent acquisition is speaking about regarding flexibility? Are those conversations with individuals the same? Are we talking about flexibility in hours? Are we talking about flexibility in how work gets done? Are we talking about flexibility in the application of qualifications that you have that may not 100% speak to the job description as printed? Who's making those decisions and what kinds of conversations are we having? I think also from a trend standpoint, we have to start thinking about AI in some pieces as as an employee. Or should we just look at it as a tool? I mean, if you read some of the headlines right now, layoffs are happening because we're replacing people with AI. Now, whether you believe that or not, whether that's all true or not, we don't have enough time to go through that. But it's certainly something that I think HR and talent acquisition need to align on. And right now, I don't know that we are. We're all running around trying to do more with less, quite frankly. If you saw the numbers, the last month we hit over 1 million US roles cut this year so far. Haven't had those numbers since 2003. Over 1 million roles cut this year so far. It's huge. So you've got people who are working in these divisions and departments where maybe at one point there were 7 people in HR and now there's five, or 5 people in talent acquisition and now there's two. And to say, well, John, this is all well and good and nice, but we don't have time. Well, look, if you're probably wasting a bit more time because there's not alignment, you're probably wasting time that you desperately need because we're operating as if we're opposite ends of the spectrum. And there's no better movie about effective alignment when you look at two things that should not go together than Pretty Woman. You have someone who is this successful, quote unquote, business person, made millions and millions and millions, and someone who is effectively working the streets, and they come together and we love it, right? This alignment I've had every time it's on the television. My wife, it's staying on. Whatever we're flipping through, that movie is staying on. Because this story of alignment coming together at the end, the love that comes through in the movie, really has to be something we affirm even within our organizations because we're operating towards the same goals. It's interesting, again, in this movie, if you look at some of the objectives that each of them had, they're coming at it from different places, but ultimately they were looking for the same thing. I think that's very true in HR and TA, and we miss out on that because we're so stymied in our positions, we forget to look at what those goals are overall. And think about the onboarding process as well. Some of you as talent acquisition professionals talk to the candidates you've brought in 30 days later and 40 days later, just checking in to see how things are going after orientation and some of the onboarding is done. And you're hearing things from them like, nobody talked to me for a week, or the schedule I was given day one wound up getting changed 15 times. I feel like I'm a bother more than I'm appreciated. That information's got to get to the right outlets for some change, and in a way that we have to be open to on the HR side. And if I never hear from you, except for when you want to complain about what a candidate, now employee, is telling you, I probably feel some sort of way about that. It's just a human bit that we have to deal with, right? That's why I think if we do some of the prep work in advance, like we know to do in talent acquisition, include HR in some of that so that there's unified messaging, right? Consistency across the board. This is what we're striving for. This is what success will look like. And this is how we'll know we've achieved it, right? Have some clarity there. And obviously, the more you can use technology to do that and to work with one another, we're not in the days where we ran down the hall. When I started, that's what we would do, run down the hall to each other and talk real quick about, oh, I got so and so on the phone. Do you have 5 minutes now? I'm going to transfer the person over to you. Or that's not how we work today. And so having to lean into technology to help to solve for some of those things is a must. It's part of our alignment strategy. And with all this in front of us, this is what we got to do today. We need to make it work. We got to stop sort of belly aching about some things. HR needs to own what it needs to own and step up to the plate with our talent acquisition colleagues and say, it's time. We're on the same team. And those of you, by the way, who are operating as a department of one, don't think I forgot about you. You may need to have a conversation with yourself. You may be leaning one way or the other, and be out of balance with the alignment between what the objectives are for talent acquisition and what the objectives are for HR. Those things need to work because ultimately we want hiring efficiency. We all want to make sure that we know what it is we're running after. So define that. I threw up here something that I think is a lost art in the RACI model. If you are familiar with that, it is a tool I highly recommend as you sit with one another, especially if you've not done it in a long time or ever, to really help understand who's responsible for what. And so that's the R, responsible, who's accountable, who needs to be supportive or who has been supportive in making sure some of these objectives are met, who do I just need to consult with, let them know what's going on, and ask maybe for a bit of their overall experience as opposed to the I, which is just letting some people know what's going on. I don't need your feedback. I don't need you to tell me what you think I'm doing wrong. Just letting you know we're working on it, right? Have clarity about who sits in those positions. And that's going to include people in HR, in talent acquisition, your hiring manager, department manager. It might include a director who's overseeing all of that. It may include some people that are functioning as recruiting coordinators, as HR coordinators. Think about all the roles that need to be involved here so that there's really healthy alignment, not just a wish for it, but we can point to say who's handling what and ultimately who's accountable. That will force the hiring process to streamline. That will force time to be seen for the commodity that it is. Really important, yes, but we let a lot of time slip by, and it's the commodity we can't recoup. We need to be able to lean into this, and HR has a great responsibility not to be served, but to participate. And so, for my HR brethren that are out there, please don't think that this is about you being given what it is you want. It's you participating in the process with your talent acquisition partners to decide together how this is going to look. And of course, utilizing technology in an ATS. If you're really small, don't think I'm forgetting you either, right? Utilize your Google tools or Microsoft tools to help you if you don't have a formalized system like an ATS. Now, I want to give you a couple other thoughts quickly on ways in which talent acquisition can really be supportive to HR and giving them thoughts around job enlargement. Um, Maybe you're coming across candidates for particular roles that are bringing more skills to the table lately than seem to be required in the role. There's complementary skills that keep coming up. I would bring that to HR. There are ways in which we get to maintain and keep interest with those that are here. I don't want to complain about quiet quitting. I want to address it. You're here. You've chosen to be here. I want to lean into those skills you have and not let you just get comfortable. Let me enlarge your responsibilities, your duties. Let me give you opportunity to sort of invest with some interests that you have. Let me let you know that some candidates are coming into the workforce that are bringing more than you currently have. That pressure is good, right? We know that good pressure can produce diamonds. So let's think of it that way. It may also be that HR needs to let talent acquisition back into the process at 60 or 90 days. Let them jump in, come back in and take advantage of the relationship that they had built with that candidate that's now an employee. They might get more information out of them than you are, HR practitioner. Partner together in that. And obviously, some of this is in prep for when the belts loosen and we can have some flexibility in internal mobility. We know what we're working with much clearer. We have a better idea about these capabilities and can give people these opportunities. And talent acquisition practitioners have an eye for this. And HR really should partner with them in order to be encouraged to take advantage of some of these things. Now, this will require a change to communication. If Slack is the only way that you communicate, you might want to get on a video. You might want to chat with one another. You might want to have some personality with one another, right? This time that you're spending with me would be very different if I was just typing everything that I'm saying. You're missing out on tone and vibe and a smile, right? And even the way in which some words are breathier than others, right? There's a passion that might come through in that way. Try to communicate often and in various ways with one another so that you can be passionate about what you're paying attention to. to know what you should measure, what matters. My goodness, if time to hire is the metric we're still dying on, good morning. It's a new day. Let's try to think, not that it's unimportant completely, but it can't always be the primary. We got to look at this a little bit differently. And I will tell you, there's still HR practitioners that think that's the primary metric. And talent acquisition might have a better perspective on this. We need to hear that. We need to hear that. And then you need to hear talent acquisition from HR in terms of the way in which we're feeling about how things are coming into us. And if it's about being persnickety, it's okay to point that out. If it's just not the way I like it, then I want to call out somebody and say, I appreciate that you don't like it this way, but let's talk about what's best for the organization. If that's where we're falling down, then I need to hear from somebody to tell me the truth that things need to be a bit different. I have to mention behavior-based employee engagement. I have to mention it because talent acquisition in what is done on the recruiting space in sourcing and assessing and conversing with qualified candidates. There's so much behavioral conversation that you're having, and that could fall down once the handoff happens in the new hire process, in the orientation process, in the first 6 months onboarding consideration. We forget to kind of come back to those behavioral based considerations. So if I know that engaged employees, for instance, have increased productivity, then I want to make sure I'm building off of what talent acquisition started doing in the recruiting process as they have come into the organization. Or I want to be thoughtful about what initiative looks like for them because I know engaged employees tend to take more initiative. And if I have notes from my talent acquisition partner who's like, this person is an entrepreneur, right, in hiding, they really are looking for ways in which they can improve and expand. I want to know that. And I want to be able to hold myself, this individual, and the department manager accountable to tapping into that initiative and develop deeper engagement to the work. And of course, agility, right? A more engaged workforce, they're more adaptable to change. We don't have to have 15 days of change management forced down your throat. It's an understood part of how we operate here. And when TA and HR work together and can pivot quickly, we're demonstrating what good change management looks like. Look, my encouragement in all of this has been about ultimately this working together. We can do this very practically. For those of you who are very task oriented, put together a checklist, right? What are those areas for improvement between HR and TA? How do we work together to make sure it happens? What are those mile markers along the way that need to occur? Be that specific in that checklist if that's helpful. But it may be that there's got to be some softness to this in your organization to start with. Maybe it is about grabbing a cup of coffee with someone and saying, listen, let's just have an initial conversation. We hardly know each other. You're just handing off people to me, and I'm picking up people and putting them into our system. These are people. We're forgetting that. And so, as people who are working together, how do we align what we do better for the people that we're supporting and bringing into the organization? That's what a lot of this is about. And yes, we're coming from different backgrounds. And when you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, there's 100 reasons why this team should not work well together, why they shouldn't have been able to save the universe as many times as they did. It's in light of their differences. It's in light of the skill sets that they're applying and the duties and responsibilities that they have that they work so well together. And that I know is true for human resources and talent acquisition. So my hope in this time is that you are inspired, perhaps, to extend an olive branch. Perhaps you've done it before and feel like you were burned. It might be time to extend it again. And of course, if I can be helpful, just as Brian shared as well, I'm happy to chat with anybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang with me today here. And Dan, thanks so much, buddy, for letting me be a part of this as well.